All right, Shabbos, say good morning. Let's begin. Today's daf is Nun Vav 56. We are picking up on the bottom Mishnah Nun Hey Amadeus 55b. Writes the Mishnah, Halokeach o shenitan lo matana pater b'maiser behema. So we'll say seemingly straightforward halacha. If you go ahead and purchase an animal, or an animal is given to you as a matana, that animal is pater from maiser behema. So we'll say very interesting halacha. So in other words, simply put, the only animal that is subject to the laws of maiser behema is one which is born into your flock. But if you purchase the newborn animal, you are gifted the newborn animal, it is pater from maiser behema. To which the Gemara says, okay, from where do I know this? Bechor banecha titenli, kein ta'aseh l'sharcha litzonecha. So we'll say interesting source. The pasuk says, the pasuk reads, Melei ascha v'dim ascha lo sa'acher, bechor banecha titenli. Right, give me your firstborn son. Kein ta'aseh l'sharcha litzonecha. So should you do to your shar and to your seh, or to your tzon, excuse me. For 7 days it shall be with his mother, and then you'll do it to me. So the Gemara is dashing over here the juxtaposition between Bechor Adam, right, firstborn of a person, and tzon, and sheep. What's the nature of the juxtaposition? Bechor banecha titin, mikin ta'aseh l'sharcha l'tzonecha, top of Nun Vav. Ma banecha ein belakuach matana. Just like Rabbi said, there is no din of bechar by a firstborn son if you purchase the baby, or if the baby is gifted to you. Aftzoncha ubekarcha eina belakuach matana. So too, ultimately, when it comes to maiser behema and your tzon and your bakar, there is no din of maiser behema with a purchased animal or with a gifted animal. Look at Rashi. Banecha eina belakuach telo sheicha b'hulekicha umatana ela etzlo noldo. Obviously, there's no such thing as Bechor Adam unless, of course, what? That baby was born to you. There's no din of matana. There's no din of mekach. So too by shar, so too by tzon and bakar, there is no din of maiser behema by any animal that is purchased or gifted. To which the Gemara says, 1 second, different topic. V'hai bebechor ksiv. But what are you talking about? The discussion over here by Bechor Adam, right, by people, is not the din of Bechor, the din of firstborn. And the juxtaposition of Sharcha Tzonecha is talking about Bechor. So how are you applying this ultimately again to Maiser Behema? I was supposed to understand what happened over here. What we just said, what the drasha was, is the same way that Bechor Adam doesn't apply to a case of where the firstborn child was bought or gifted. So too by Maiser Behema doesn't apply to a case of where the animal was purchased or gifted. So Shmuel says, what? You're talking about Bechar, you make an application of Bechar to Maiser Behema. So what's going on over here? To which the Gemara says, Amar Kra, Kain Taseh. So we'll say, so apparently there is an extra phrase in this particular subject of Kain Taseh. So shall be done. So we'll say, now that when it comes to that phrase, Im Eino Inyan LeBechar, Delo Isei Ba'asiyah, if that phrase is not necessary when it comes to Bechar, because ultimately, we'll say, when it comes to Bechar, there is no Asiyah, right? There's no positive dynamic activity when it comes to Bechar. There's nothing to be done because Bechar is a de facto state. Right, Bechar occurs when the firstborn is born. So therefore, again, because ultimately, again, the Bechar is already sanctified from the womb. Therefore, we'll say, use that phrase ultimately for what? For Maiser Behema. So we'll say, so essentially, what's happening here is really quite fascinating. The drasha that's being advanced is a drasha that is made ultimately by Bechar. And the drasha by Bechar says that just as a Bechar Adam cannot be purchased and cannot be gifted, so to buy an animal, ultimately again the kedusha of Maiser Behema or Maiser Behema animal cannot be gifted or purchased, rather it must be born into the flock. To which the Gemara says, aye, but it's saying about by Bechor, not by Meiser Behema. Extra phrase, Kain Tasa. Kain Tasa is not necessarily over here for this context. So Kain Tasa Bosai means that the same way that this halacha applies ultimately again by Bechor, it applies ultimately by Meiser Behema as well. Beautiful. To which the Gemara says, Ve'ema, Teneu Inyan Lechatas Ula Asham. Well, maybe Kain Tasa comes to teach you that this concept should be applied to a chatas and an asham. And maybe the only type of animal that you could bring for a chatas or an asham is what? Is a type of animal that is born into your flock. Right? If you purchase an animal, or an animal ultimately is gifted to you, you can't use it for a chatas and an asham. Maybe that's the pasuk coming to teach me. To which the Gemara says no. No, I'll tell you why. Dumya de bincha. Because we'll say the pasuk is saying that the shar and the baka in question over here has to resemble my child. Ma bincha she'ino ba'achit. Just like I will say, bechar has nothing to do with sin. Af tzoncha v'sharcha she'ino ba'achit. So too the tzon and the shar mentioned in the pasuk should have nothing to do with sin. Therefore, again, I will say the pasuk cannot be coming to teach me about chatos. I the imatineu inyan la'olo l'shlamim. Fine. So we're saying maybe the pasuk is coming to teach me that what? That halacha l'maisa, the same way that ultimately Bechar Adam doesn't apply to anything that is bought or gifted, so too the tzon and bakar in the pasuk is talking about for an ola and shlamim, and teaching me that any animal used for an ola and shlamim must what? Must be born into the flock, cannot go ahead and be purchased or gifted. To which the Gemara says again, Dumya de bincha, ma bincha she'eno ba b'neder unidava, aftzoncha v'sharcha she'eno ba b'neder unidava. Therefore, we'll say again, the pasuk compares son and shor to my son, just like my son cannot be offered up, so to speak, as a neder and a nedava. I.e., again, I will say the status of bechor is a de facto status. So the son and the bakar mentioned here in the pasuk is dealing with something that cannot be offered up as a neder or a nedava. Good. The ima teneu inyan la'olas re'iyah. So maybe the pasuk is coming to teach like this. Just like bechar cannot be acquired through mekach, through purchase, or through gift, so to the animal brought for the olas re'iyah cannot be purchased or gifted as well. To which the Gemara says, Dumya de bincha. Once again, the animals in question have to resemble my child. Ma bincha shen kavua lo zman. Just like Rav say, Bechar is not dependent on time. In other words, there is no window for Bechar. Bechar is a function of being the firstborn, but it's not tethered to any particular time. Av shar chavetzoncha shen kavua lo zman. So to Rav say the shar and its son in the pasuk are also talking about circumstances where what? Where there is no kavua time. And since olas re'iyah has a kavua time, it can't be what is learned out from the pasuk. I ima bincha ino belakuach klal av sharcha v'tzoncha incha belakuach klal. So we'll say. So therefore, again, what we have over here is as follows: the drasha that the Gemara. Here's what we know. Let's follow the progression. Mishnah taught me. Mishnah taught me that halacha l'maisa, if you go ahead and you purchase an animal, or an animal is gifted to you, it is not subject to meiser behema. It's part of meiser behema. Where do I know that from? The Gemara, interestingly enough, is learning it out from the drasha, the juxtaposition of sharcha and soncha to bechar, to teach me that just as bechar ultimately only applies to something, to someone that is not purchased or gifted, so too ultimately again, meiser behema only applies to an animal that is not purchased or gifted. That's talking about bechar, not meiser behema. How do we answer that? Kain sasa. Extra phrase. We just went through now an exhaustive list of teaching me, well, why can't you use it for this? Why can't you use it for this? Why can't you use it for this? And we discounted all that possibility. So therefore, The drasha remains intact. Now we're going to challenge one piece of this. So the Gemara says as follows. Ima bincha inu b'lakuach klal. So we said before that just like again for Bechor Adam, your firstborn son cannot be purchased, right? I think you're talking about a firstborn son that is born to you, can't be purchased or gifted in any way. So too we said that the shar and the tzon over here, when it comes to Meiser Behema, cannot be purchased or gifted in any way. If that's the case, Alama Amr Asi Amr Yochanan. Why is it that Rabbi Asi and Rabbi Yochanan? Listen to this. This is a fascinating case. Lakach Asara Ubrin B'mai Iman. Rabbi said, let's watch this. You bought 10 sheep in utero. So we'll say, so what's the halacha? Kulam nichnasin ledir lis aser. When they are born, they all form a meiser behema cohort. You put them in the pen when they're born, and you select that you take the 10th animal from meiser behema. So what do you see from here? That meiser behema does apply to animals which you purchase. Amarava, Rava says no, it's a different case. Amikra te'aseh. We'll say the pasuk says te'aseh king se'aseh l'sharcha l'tzonecha. What do I learn from that? B'shas asiya mi'et hakasar. I will say, the disqualification for purchasing an animal for meiser behema purposes only applies in a time where the animal is subject to the laws of meiser behema. When is an animal subject to the laws of meiser behema? Only when it's alive, right? When it's in utero, it is not subject to the laws of meiser behema. So because of that, if you go ahead and you purchase an animal in utero, then halacha l'maisa again, and you purchase that animal is not disqualified. It's only once it's born that it's disqualified. So we'll say, so a fascinating exception to our rule. The rule is still intact, which is any animal that you purchase ultimately is not subject to the laws of meiser behema. So I'll say, so if you are looking to circumvent the laws of meiser behema, don't raise livestock, purchase livestock. But that only applies to born livestock, living livestock. If you go ahead and you purchase animals in utero, you purchase ubrin, so I'll say ultimately again those animals will be subject to the laws of meiser behema. Again, why? Same drasha, interestingly enough, Kain Sa'aseh. Only at a time of Asiya, only at a time when the animals themselves are subject to the laws of meiser behema, are they exempt if they're purchased. But if they're not yet subject, i.e. they're in utero, then even if you purchase them, they will later on be subject to laws of meiser behema. Incredible. Gufa, we're also going to analyze this more. Amr Basi Rabbi Yochanan. Lokach asara open b'mai iman. If you purchased 10 animals in utero, while they're still obviously in utero, so kula nichnasin l'gelis aser. Ultimately, when they are born, they all form a unit for meiser behema purposes. Ay v'ha anan tzinan halakuach o shenitan lo b'matana pata min meiser behema. So, one second. We'll say the Gemara is rehashing this conversation a little bit. But we learned in the Mishnah that if you purchase animals, or if they're given to you as a matana, you are pater from meiser behema. So how do you reconcile these two halachas? So Rabbi Elazar says as follows. Rabbi Yochanan chazai bechilma. Let's listen to this. Rabbi Elazar says, last night I saw my Rebbe, Rabbi Yochanan, in a dream. Milsa ma'al amina. That means today I'm going to say something really good. As well as say, so good. It's good to remember. If you see your Rebbe in a dream, first of all, halavai, these are the dreams we should have, right? Halavai should be dreaming about our Rebbeim. So Rabbi Yochanan, so Rabbi Elazar says, last night I saw my Rebbe Rabbi Yochanan in a dream, and whenever I see my Rebbe in a dream, I know I'm going to say something good in the Beis Medrash. Amakra, which also means sometimes if you don't see your Rebbe in a dream the night before, it could be that it's kedai to think about what you're going to say in the Beis Medrash as well. Right? It goes both ways. So it says the Gemara. So I'm going to say something really good. Amakra te'aseh. We'll say, so therefore again, Rabbi Elazar says, the pasuk says te'aseh b'shas asiya mi'ei takosu. So we'll say, so here again, Rabbi Elazar is giving the same answer we gave before. The Gemara is just working this through again. Rabbi Elazar says, the pasuk says, Kain seyaseh, which teaches me that what? The exclusion of bought or purchased animals only applies when the animal is alive and subject to the laws of Meiser Behema. That's when ultimately a bought or gifted animal will be exempt from Meiser Behema. But if you purchase the animal in utero, then when it's not yet subject to the laws of Meiser Behema, when it is born, it will be subject to the laws of Meiser Behema. Esim Shemel Yakim Rabbi Elazar, so Rabbi Shimon El Yakim is Kash Rabbi Elazar, Halakuach, Chal al Muchosr Zman. Well, this is actually an interesting statement. Look at Rashi, Chal al Muchosr Zman, Shimlakcho Kodim Shivas Yanim Leleidaso, Shuv Eno Nichnas Ladir Lehis Aser. So let's listen to this. So comes along Reb Shimon, and Reb Shimon says as follows: if you purchase an animal before it is 7 days old, right? So we'll say, so remember again, actually before it's 8 days old. There's a halacha that says as follows: when an animal is born, for the first 8 days of its life, or for the first 7 days of its life, it must remain with its mother. Umiyom hashmini v'halo yiratzeh karbani shala Hashem. Only from 8 days and on can the animal be offered up as a carbon. So I'll say, watch this. Come to Shmuel says as follows: what happens if you buy a 1 day old animal? So we'll say that animal is called Mechosr Zman. Why is it called Mechosr Zman? Why? You cannot offer it up as a carbon. Comes along Reb Shimon and El Yakim and says something very interesting. If you purchase an animal that is Mechosr Zman, ultimately what's the halacha? The halacha is that disqualifies it from entering into the pen for Meiser Behema purposes. Look at Rashi. Chalal Mechosr Zman, Shimlach Kodim Shibas Yamim Leidaso. If you purchased it within the first 7 days of its birth, Shuv Eno Nichnas Ladir Lehis Aser, it is no longer put in the pen for Meiser Behema purposes. And certainly if you bought it when it was already an adult. And both say, now watch this. This is incredible. So Reb Shimon Yaakov comes along to Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said, you just made a drasha. What was the drasha? Kain se'aseh. That the disqualification for a purchased or gifted animal only applies when the animal is subject to the laws of Meiser Behema. So for example, therefore, Rabbi Elazar, you said that halacha l'maisa, if you purchased an animal in utero, so that disqualification of a bought or a gifted animal would not apply because the animal is not yet subject to the laws of Meiser Behema. Well, using that same logic, what should be the halacha? If you purchase an animal within the first 7 days, where it is not yet fit for sacrificial purposes, it also is not subject to the laws of Meiser Behema. Yet, halacha l'maisa, we know that what? If you have a 2-day-old animal in that pen, and you go ahead, and it is not subject to the laws of Meiser Behema. So what I say, this is the kasha that he's asking ultimately again on Rabbi Elazar, to which the Gemara says, Halakuach al Mechosr Zman, Amar lei, ze eino Mishnah. So Rabbi Elazar says, so Rabbi Elazar responded, this is not part of our formal teachings. And if you want to say the Imtim Salamar Mishnah, and if you want to say it's part of our formal teachings, then what? Then ultimately again Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda. Ultimately it reflects the view of Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Yehuda, Mishum Rabbi Shimon Da'amar, B'chosr Zman Nichnas Ladir Lehis Aser. Because also he is of the opinion who says that Allah Kalamaisa, even an animal that is B'chosr Zman, ultimately goes into the pen for Meiser Behema purposes. V'harihu ki b'char. And ultimately again it will be just like the b'char. Ma b'char kadosh lifnei zmano. Just like the Bechor ultimately is sanctified before its appropriate time, the Karev la'achar zmano, and it is offered up after its time. Af mechusar zman, so to Rabbi an animal that is mechusar zman, kadosh lifnei zmano, will ultimately again be sanctified even before it reaches the proper age, i.e. 8 days old, the Karev la'achar zmano. and ultimately again will be offered up after its time. Good. So we'll say it's a fundamental machlokes we see about the nature of mechusar zman and the ability ultimately of a mechusar zman to be included in the meiser behema tally. Good. So we'll say, so you could, well, look at Rashi for just a moment. V'imtim Salomar Mishnah Vada Rabbi Shimon. Rashi says, "Diledidei mechusar zman shas asihu." Was according to Rabbi Shimon, even an animal that is less than 8 days old and not yet fit for sacrificial purposes is still considered as if it has passed the threshold of asiyah, and therefore, umishum hachi lakuach halalav. Therefore, the disqualification of lakuach would still apply to such an animal. Umiyu b'may ima moded de'in lakuach halalav. But even he would agree that if you purchase the animal in utero, that ultimately it would not be subject to the laws of meiser behema. Beautiful. Tani Tana Kamei Dirav. So we'll say the Tana taught the following to in front of Rav. Ezu esnan shenichnas ladir lehis aser. We'll say that's actually an interesting question. There's a situation of esnan. Esnan is if a man pays a harlot for her services, and he pays her ultimately again in livestock. Esnan, that's esnan zona. He gives her this esnan. So we'll say the halacha is, under normal circumstances, that item is not permitted to be used for sacrificial purposes. Halacha. So says the Gemara, what's the case of an esnan, of an animal given to a zona, shenichnas ladir lehis aser, that can be included excuse me, that can be included ultimately for a meiser behema count, called shenasnola. We'll say it's any case where the following happens. A man gives the zona, the animal, and then he repurchases it from her. So we'll say, so what happens? Reuben goes to the zona. He gives her the sheep for her services. He then realizes he has a strong connection with this sheep. They go back. So he decides that, you know what, he wants to repurchase it from her. He repurchases it. Don't read anything into that. There's nothing to be read into that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So he then goes ahead and it's a platonic relationship, right? He goes back in and he realizes that he has right. He repurchases the sheep from her. They both say, so watch this. So what's the halacha? So the Gemara says, and now if he puts that sheep back in his pen, that sheep ultimately is counted towards the meiser behema tally. So the Gemara says, if so, but 1 second. Once he repurchased it from her, I will say, then what? This is a purchased sheep. Once it's a purchased sheep, then what? Then it is precluded, right? Then it's ultimately disqualified from the laws of meiser behema. To which the Gemara says, Ishtamite had Amir Rabbi Asi. He forgot the statement of Rabbi Asi, Rabbi Yochanan, who said as follows: Lakach asara ubrin b'may iman, kulan nichnasin ledir lehis aser. That ultimately, if what? We'll say, if halacha l'maisa, you purchase 10 sheep in utero, then halacha l'maisa, when they are born, all 10 of them enter into the pen for meiser behema. We'll say, what's the case over here? You didn't give the zona an actual sheep. Rather, what did you give her? You gave her a fetus. You said, my sheep is pregnant. When the sheep gives birth, I'm going to give the fetus is yours as payment for your services. Then what happens? Before the sheep gives birth, he repurchases the fetus back from her. Then what the Mishnah, the Bryce is saying is that what? When the fetus is born, it goes back into the pen for meiser behema purposes. Amud Beis, Nun Vav Amud Beis. So says the Gemara. V'te asrei ihi. So we'll say, if that's the case, so we'll say, it seems to be that the point we're making over here is that if halacha l'maisa, a man gave a zona, a fetus, right? He gave her sheep futures. He gave her a fetus as payment for her services. When that fetus is born, it is subject to the laws of meiser behema. Okay, if that's the case, why do you have to illustrate that as a case of a man who paid a zona with a fetus, repurchased the fetus from her, and now it's subject to meiser behema? Why don't you just say simpler? A man gives a zona, a fetus, as payment for her services. When the fetus is born, the zona has an obligation on meiser. Let's be clear. Just because she's a zona doesn't mean that she's not makpid on meiser behema. And you will say, all of us have our shortcomings, our faults, and our frailties. Just because I'm not so wonderful in one area does not mean that halacha l'maisa don't observe other mitzvahs. So if you want to illustrate this concept that the uber, even if it's sold as an uber, ultimately is subject to meiser behema, why do you have to deal with the case of repurchase? Let this be a case of the zona gets the uber, and when ultimately the animal gives birth, she is obligated to go out and tithe that uber. To which the Gemara says, you say, the zona nochris. What are we talking about over here? This is a non-Jewish zona. So okay, so why don't you set it up as a Jewish zona? Or set up the case as a Jewish zona and tell me that if she received the fetus as payment for her services, when that animal gives birth, that fetus is subject to the laws of Meiser Behema. To which the Gemara says, look, I'll tell you the problem. Kamash Malon, the zona Yisraelis lo havi esnan. Both say this is fascinating. Because both say, teach me an interesting halacha, which is the concept of esnan zona. Both say the concept that when you pay a zona for her services and you give her livestock, that livestock ultimately is what? Is not permitted to be used for sacrificial purposes. That only applies to an animal which is given to a non-Jewish zona. Doesn't apply to an animal given to a Jewish zona. Kida Abaye. Both say, this, what it's saying over here is this is a technical issue. The definition of esnan zona, payment to a harlot which cannot be used for sacrificial purposes, is talking about an animal given to a non-Jewish harlot, a non-Jewish zona. Kida Abaye. Lomer Abaye. Zona nachris esnana aser. Abaye says, a non-Jewish zona, her esnan, her payment, ultimately again is aser to be used for sacrificial purposes. Now, both say, not only that, this is amazing. The Kohen Habba'aleha, and for Kohen, very uplifting. Right? The Kohen Habba'aleha, and I want to say, ultimately again, if a Kohen has relations with this non-Jewish zona, I feel like sometimes it's like a dafyomi obstacle course. Between ringtones and people who seem to get a high from dragging chairs. It's like it's rubbish. Good. That's our result. The Kohen Habba'aleha ain't a lokim mishum lo yichaz. Right, that's a good time for a good public service announcement. You are permitted to lift the chairs. You do not have to actively drag them. Good. Says the Gemara, the Kohen Habba'aleha ain't a lokim mishum lo yichaz. We'll say, so let's start halacha. Right, so we'll say another interesting halacha, which is that if a Kohen goes ahead and has relations with, ultimately again, that a Kohen who has relations with a non-Jewish zona, he does not get malchus for lo yichalal zaro. But we'll say there is a law that a Kohen is not permitted to profane his offspring. They both say, we're just going to what that law refers to. That law refers to that if a Kohen marries someone he is not allowed to marry, halacha l'maisa, his offspring, he produces chalalim, he's going ahead and profaning his offspring. What the Gemara now is suggesting is as follows, that halacha l'maisa, first of all, the definition of an esnan zona, payment for a harlot, which is an animal given to a harlot to pay for her services, that cannot be used for sacrificial purposes, only applies ultimately to a zona nachris, a non-Jewish zona. Again, I want to be clear, I want to go on the record. You are not permitted to go to a Jewish zona either, right? But halacha l'maisa, the animal you give her as payment for services does not satisfy the technical criteria of esnan. That animal could still be used for sacrificial purposes. It's only the animal given to a zona nachris. Furthermore, if a Kohen goes to a zona nachris, although again he violates certain things else immorality, but he does not violate the particular law of lo yichal zaro. Zoni Yisraelis esnana motor. Conversely, I will say, if halacha l'maisa, a man goes to a Jewish zona and he pays her with an animal, that animal ultimately again is permitted, i.e., it can be used for sacrificial purposes. The Kohen Habba'aleha lo ke mishum lo yichal zaro. And ultimately, again, a Kohen who does have relations with her will ultimately again will get malchus for violating the law of lo yichal zaro, for profaning his offspring. So Gemara explains this now. Zona nachris esnena aser. So we'll say if a man goes to a zona nachris and he pays her with an animal, an animal cannot be used for sacrificial purposes. Why? Gamar to'eva me'arayis. Both make Gzir Shava of to'eva, abomination from arayis. Ma'arayos, the law of tafsi ba kiddushin. Both say just like by arayos, if a man gives a woman an item of value in order to affect kiddushin, ultimately again the kiddushin is not affected. This is a very important halacha, right? If a man gives his sister kesef kiddushin, then kiddushin obviously does not work. Af zona bahach telo tafsi ba kiddushin. So too, what Rabbi say? So too, when does the esnan become aser? In a circumstance where kiddushin would not take effect. Rabbi say, what's a circumstance where kiddushin would not take effect? Only with a non-Jewish zona. But with the Jewish zona, technically speaking, so kiddush can take effect. So see what's happening over here? A gzir shav of to'eva from arayos to a zona. Translate to'eva by arayos. He's talking about a situation, the type of arayos, where kiddushin cannot take effect. Also remember again, there are different forms of inappropriate relationships. Some of them kiddushin take effect. So for example, a kohen is not permitted to marry grusha, but if he does, the kiddushin works. A man is not permitted to marry his sister. A man is not permitted to marry someone else's wife. In those cases, ultimately, again, that's what Torah calls a to'eva. Kiddushin doesn't take effect. Torah uses the lashon of to'eva by a rayas, lose lashon of to'eva by an esnan zona, right? By a zona. To teach me that what type of zona affects esnan? The type of zona which is a to'eva. Which is the type of zona which is a to'eva? The type of zona with whom you can't have kiddushin. What type of zona can't you have kiddushin with? A non-Jewish zona. And therefore, we'll say it's only in the case of non-Jewish zona where ultimately, again, the animal takes on the specific halachic designation of an esnan, which means that animal that is given for payment cannot be used for sacrificial purposes. The kohen habale eno loki mishum lo yechal zaro. So I'll say, but if a kohen has relations with a non-Jewish zona, ultimately, again, he doesn't get malchus for violating the particular lab of not profaning his offspring. The Gemara says, zaro v'hai lab zarehu. We'll say for a very simple technical reason. The kohen is not permitted to go ahead and profane his offspring. And we'll say, technically speaking, if the kohen were to father a child with this non-Jewish zona, so whose child would it be, Rabbi say? The zonas. Remember again, I will say any time that a man fathers a child with a non-Jewish woman, that is not considered to be halachically his child. So therefore, again, the only time where halacha l'maisa, again, there is a prohibition of lo yichalal zaro for the kohen, is when the offspring would be mesyaches after him, which would be with who? With a Jewish zona, right? Bless you. But ultimately, again, halacha l'maisa, with a non-Jewish zona, because the offspring is not mesyaches to him, therefore, halacha l'maisa, he is not in violation. So we'll say it's a very interesting halacha. So what comes out over here is, so we'll say the takeaways are as follows. Number one, halacha l'maisa, the laws of meiser behema do not apply to any animal which you purchase or which you receive as a gift. We learn that out ultimately from the juxtaposition to Bechor. Even though it's not by Bechor, Kein Tasa teaches us ultimately that halacha l'maisa, that is right, that halacha l'maisa. Fine. We'll say, however, if you purchase animals in euro and those animals are subsequently born, so ultimately the disqualification of a purchased animal does not apply to those animals, and they will be subject ultimately to meiser behema. We then also saw the fascinating sugya that the definition of esnan zona is only an animal given to a non-Jewish zona. That's what has the designation of an esnan and cannot be used for sacrificial purposes. But apparently, the animal given to a Jewish zona does not have the status as esnan, and therefore could even be used for sacrificial purposes. Quite amazing. Says the Mishnah, says Kavaiter. Interesting case. Ha'achin shechal, ha'achin va'shutvin, we'll say brothers, who are inheriting an estate together. Va'shutvin, and shutvin will say partners. Shechayavin bekalbon, p'tur mimaiser behema. We'll say, so remember again, let's talk about this just a moment. Kalbon, I will say, is the extra additional amount that you pay up over and above your machzis hashekel. So you would give a machzis hashekel, and you would also give a kalbon. Kalbon is a little bit extra. The reason for that, as I will say, is because remember again, machzis shekel was a coin made of silver, and sometimes it was possible that what would happen, the silver would erode. So in order to ensure that you are giving the correct amount ultimately to the Beis Hamikdash, salach l'maisa, you give a little extra. So we'll say, so just one word about this. Brothers inherit an estate, as we're going to see it. They could have different relationships. They could be called yarshim. Yarshim, we'll say, means that they are inheriting the estate, but the estate is still considered to be the property of one person, i.e. the deceased father. They're operating within that framework. Versus when they go ahead and they divide up the estate, they could be called shutfin. They could be called partners. They're both saying there is a machzis shekel nafkamin in this also. A father is permitted to go ahead and give a machzis shekel on behalf of his children. Let's say again, Yaakov has two sons, Reuven and Shimon. Yaakov wants to give machzis shekel for Reuven and Shimon. So let's say he gives a full shekel. He only gives one kalbon, basically. He doesn't give a kalbon for each of them, just one kalbon for the shekel coin. Versus Reuven and Shimon, who are partners in their father's estate, each are obligated to give their own kalbon for their machzah shekel. So the Gemara's recording over here is a fascinating relationship. Ha'achin v'ashutfin, anytime that brothers have an estate together and they are partners, shechayavim kalbon, if they're chayiv to give kalbon, pitur mimaiser behema. But as we're going to see, maiser behema does not apply to jointly owned sheep. It only, right, anytime that there's a shutfus, it does not apply. Chayavim ma'aser behema, therefore anytime they're chayiv in kalbon, they're parted from ma'aser. It's an inverse relationship. Chayavim ma'aser behema, conversely, if they're chayiv ma'aser behema, then what? Pitur min kalbon. They will be parted from kalbon. Kano mitfisas habayis. I will say kano mitfisas habayis means if they do not divide up the estate, but instead they're operating together in an undivided estate, chayavim. Ultimately, again, they will be chayiv in ma'aser behema. The imlad, if not, it will say sounds like what? They divided up the estate, then piturin. Ultimately, again, they will be patur in ma'aser behema. Chalku, chazru, v'nishtatfu was an interesting case. What happens if they divide up the estate, disentangling their individual ownership interests, but then they subsequently pool their resources together as a newly minted partnership? Chayavin b'kalbon. They'll be chayiv in kalbon because each of them again are independent operators. Or patur ma'aser behema. But because now there's a shutfus, ultimately again they will be patur from ma'aser behema. So we'll say, let's analyze this. Tana Abanan. Yeah, we'll say, how do I know that jointly owned property is not subject to ma'aser behema? So the Brisa says, Yihi alecha, it will be for you. So the Gemara says, V'lo shel shutfus, which teaches me what? It is only individually owned. Only individually owned animals which are subject to ma'aser behema, but nothing in a shutfus. I might have thought that's true, even if what? Even if halacha l'maisa will say tfisas habayis means literally the home, the estate is holding on to everything, which refers to an undivided estate. So we'll say, just to understand halachically, when you have an estate of Yaakov who died, and he has two sons, Reuven and Shimon, but Reuven and Shimon have not divided up the estate. They are still operating together. So halacha l'maisa, it is considered to be the estate still of one person. Because of that, that estate will be subject to the halachos of ma'aser behema. So yachol afilu kana b'tfisas habayis. You might have thought, therefore it's true even if halacha l'maisa, they're operating together. Talmud lomar yihiyah. Therefore, the pasuk says it will be. Right? Yihiyah means to say as long as it can be considered the property of one person, as it is in this particular situation where you have an undivided estate, it is still considered to be the property of the patriarch. Ultimately, again, it's chayiv in ma'aser behema. V'hai b'bechor ksiba. 1 second. That pasuk is talking about the bechor. The Gemara says, also, remember again, that pasuk, the pasuk you're referencing over here is not about ma'aser behema, it's about bechor. Im eino inyan lebechor, da isei b'shutfus. So we'll say again, very simply, if I don't need to apply this halacha to bechor, because bechor even applies to jointly owned animals, tichsev ubechoros bekarchem vitzon acher. We'll say it's phrased in the plural. So today inyan l'ma'aser behema. ultimately again give it over to Meiser Behema. Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Pamim shechayaven bezeh ubazeh, upamim shepturim mizeh umizeh, upamim shechayaven bekabon upturim Meiser Behema, upamim shechayaven Meiser Behema upturim nakabon. So also now the Gemara says, there are times when ultimately again the animal will be chayiv in both kalbon and Meiser Behema. Sometimes when it's parted from both. Sometimes when it's chayiv in kalbon, parted from Meiser Behema. Sometimes when it's chayiv in Meiser Behema, parted from kalbon. So let's go through the cases. Chayav in bazeh ubazeh. When will you have, Rabbi, say, a case of where it will be chayiv both in Meiser Behema and kalbon? When is that? Shechalku b'ksafim v'lo chalku b'behema, where they divided up the money of the estate but did not divide up the livestock. B'turim mizeh umizeh. When will it be patur in both? Shechalku b'behema v'lo chalku b'ksafim, where they divided up the animals but did not divide up the money. Chayavim b'kalbon and b'turim Meiser Behema. When will you be chayiv in kalbon and patur Meiser Behema? Shechalku bazeh ubazeh, where you divided ultimately again both. Chayavim Meiser Behema upturim min al kalbon. When will you be chayiv in Meiser Behema and patur from kalbon? Shalo chalku bazeh ubazeh, where they divided up neither the money nor the livestock. To which the Gemara says, Pshita, these cases are obvious. I'll tell you why I need it. Chalku bebehema v'lo chalku b'ksavim mitzrichalei. I need the case of where they divided up the behema, the animals, but did not divide up the money. That case is needed. It's tzrichalei. Why? Sakadait chamina. I would have thought, kevan de chalku bebehema kalu datayhu de mifla kaimi v'lechayva b'kalbon. I might have thought said that since they divided up what? Since they divided up ultimately again the animals, that's indicative that they're going to divide up the monies as well, and therefore again each one should be chayiv in kalbon. Kamash molando. Kamash molando say that even if it looks like they're going to divide up the money, if they have not yet done so, halacha lemaisa, we do not view it ultimately again as divided up. Amar Ravanan, lo shenu ela shechalku gedim keneged tayashim, u'tiyashim keneged gedim. Ravanan said, furthermore, this is only so, if they divided up the value of the estate. So, for example, one brother got gedim, and one brother got tiyashim. So we'll say, so they're not dividing up each entity, rather again they're dividing up the value of the estate. Aval chalku gedim keneged gedim, u'tiyashim keneged tiyashim. But I will say, if halacha l'maisa, each brother got a portion of each part of the estate. So each brother got gedim, each brother got tiyashim. Omer zechal koha magia lo misha rishona lekach. So we'll say ultimately again we view it as if each brother is getting his designated portion, i.e. breira. Rav Nachman said afilu chalko gedim keneged gedim utiyashim keneged tiyashim ein omrim zehu chalko hamagio misha rishona lekach. We'll say the other opinion says that no, even if halacha l'maisa, each brother is getting specific parts of the entire estate, each getting some chelik of something, we do not say ultimately again halacha l'maisa that each brother is getting their breira portion, and therefore halacha l'maisa the division will not apply. Well, we'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up with this further division piece tomorrow.